So our primary goal is to deflect kids from unnecessarily going to the foster care system. Families that come to us are some of the hardest working people I know.
It's not like a huge commitment necessarily.
No, it's not.
Hi, I'm Corey with UHQ Construction, and today we have one of the most generous guests that you could meet. They are a Butler graduate, and they are the director of Safe Families for Children, Laura Rasche.
Very good.
Laura,
Yes.
How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, happy to talk about everything. So tell me a little bit about Safe Families for Children and what do you do as your role there as the director?
Perfect. So Safe Families for Children is a nonprofit that is basically looking to build a community for those families who don't have that. So it was founded on this idea of why are we letting families get to the point of desperation before anyone's willing to help? So we started in Chicago in 2003, and then this chapter in Central Indiana has been open since 2008. So as director, my primary responsibility is fundraising to keep the chapter moving, and then also just overseeing my coworkers and really just kind of making sure that we're in alignment with what the mission of Safe Families is.
That's great. That's awesome. So how did you end up working at Safe Families?
Yeah, so volunteer first. So my kids and I became a host family in 2012. Just really passionate about the mission and what we do. I'm a single mom myself, and so really can relate to families that need help. But I was lucky enough to have family, friends, neighbors that wrapped around me and my kids. So the opportunity to pay that forward was very appealing to us. So then in 2018, a position opened on the staff, and I was invited to come on to the staff as a family coach. And then in 2021, I transitioned to the role of director.
Okay, so you've been doing it a few years now, kind of worked through it with COVID. I'm sure that was interesting.
That was very interesting, yes.
A little bit of a challenge.
Pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been really good though. And I think because I've been able to see it from all different sides, it's been just really good to now be in this position and be able to relate to where other people are, whether they're volunteers or on staff.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So for those who don't know, what is it that Safe Families for Children does?
Yeah. So our primary goal is to deflect kids from unnecessarily going to the foster care system. We 100% believe that the foster care system is there for a reason, but we also think a lot of families end up there that don't need to be. They're just needing that extra support from their community. So we're trying to build these family-like support systems for them so they have people to turn to, where I might have asked my parents, hey, can you take the kids tonight? Or can you help me get my daughter to the doctor? Or whatever that looks like. We stand in and we're those people for them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
It's really amazing.
Yeah. That's great. And so I know a bit about Safe Families so far. So there's a few different roles in the Safe Families that people can do to volunteer, because it is a volunteer-based program, right? Like people aren't necessarily getting paid here. That you're the director. Obviously, there's people, you have employees, but a large portion of this movement are volunteers.
Yes. Yeah. So they don't get any money.
Yeah.
We try to throw tangible items at them to support them while they're wrapping around a family. But it's truly, they're just stepping up out of the goodness of their hearts.
That's awesome. So one of the roles is a family friend. What exactly is it when somebody, what's that role look like for somebody that wants to volunteer as a family friend?
Yeah. So pretty much exactly what it sounds like, right? Just somebody who is a friend to this family. So it could be mentorship. It could maybe be a mom or a dad that's looking for a mentor, somebody to talk to about parenting or talk to about their job search. It could also look like helping to provide transportation. Maybe a mom has changed schools for their kids and the bus isn't established yet. And so helping get that child to school or back. Could also be taking families to doctor's appointments, taking mom to a job interview, just any sort of wraparound like that. And then it could also be like maybe they're dropping off a meal or, wrapping around in some sort of tangible way too. But it's mainly that mentorship and then just helping with the basic logistics of like day-to-day living.
Yeah, because some people just don't have that help, like you said. And so just having somebody there is like a friend, essentially.
Yeah. And a lot of the families that we serve don't have their own transportation. And it's easy for people outside of this type of work to say like, well, why don't they just take the bus? But it's not that easy. They don't just get on the bus and end up where they wanted to go. It can sometimes be several hours. Yeah. So going to a doctor's appointment could be an 8-hour event. Yeah. Because they don't have transportation. So if we can step in, get them to the doctor, and then still get everybody to where they need to go, school, work, daycare, it's just a win for everybody.
Yeah, I think sometimes, people who have a vehicle kind of may take for granted, how nice it is. And Indianapolis is not like we talked about this last week with a realtor, and it's like, we're not very densely populated here. It's a lot of urban sprawl, and everything's so spread out. And like you said, it's like, it can be a challenge to get across town, even with the bus system.
Yeah. It could be like a 15-minute car ride, but on the bus system, it could be an hour and 15 minutes. Right. So it's just not realistic when you're talking about parents with kids and multiple places to go.
Right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's great. Okay, so after a family friend, another volunteer opportunity is being a family coach. So in the role as a family coach, as a volunteer, what does that look like?
Yeah, so family coaches are essential to what we do because any family we serve has to have a family coach attached to them. So that family coach is sort of like the middleman. So they're the person that works between the volunteer family and the family that needs our services. So they'll help the parents who are needing our services. The family coach helps them with resources that they might need, making other referrals. We're not the expert in all lanes. We can take care of kids and love them well, but we're not the housing expert. We're not the job expert. So we partner them with the places that can help, better direct them in those areas. And then the family coach also does visits with the children who are being hosted or family friended. So we're checking in on that side too, making sure that the volunteers have what they need to be successful, making sure that personalities are meshing well, just that it's going well. And so then helps coach them through whatever kind of struggles they might be having. So they just really help make sure that that communication is going well, making sure that the parents are still seeing their children regularly. And then they can also help with things like transportation and different things like that too for either side, the volunteer or the parent needing our services.
So just between those two roles, a family friend, a family coach, there's a lot of ways to really help people without being super involved, right?
Yes.
Like you taking in some time out of your day or, helping somebody a bit, but it's not like a huge commitment necessarily.
No, it's not. It's, I like a personal story. I family friended a mom who had foot surgery and couldn't do her laundry. Like she didn't have laundry in her apartment. She didn't have a washer and dryer, but she had foot surgery. So she was non-weight bearing. So for 3-4 weeks in a row, I would just go over to her house, pick up her laundry, take it home, do her laundry, bring it back to her later that day. It's so simple. Like it didn't take much out of me, but it was life-saving to her because she had no way to do that herself. So it really is minimal effort, but huge impact. So
yeah, absolutely. That's great. And then, so there's one level above that too. There's a host family, right? So what exactly does the role of a host family take?
Yep. So the host family is a volunteer family that is willing to bring kids into their home overnight. So the other roles that we've talked about, none of that is overnight. That's all daytime care. But a host family will let a child come and live with them for the determined amount of time. And so they will, same thing. They've got that family coach helping with the communication with the parents as well. But yeah, they're basically, having a slumber party for however long that might be.
Yeah.
And it could be one night, it could be a couple of weeks. It just, really depends on the situation. But they are the people that say, all right, everybody can bunk up here. And hosting is how Safe Families started. And so a lot of times people think that they can't do Safe Families because they only think of the hosting piece. But hosting is how we started. It's still very important to what we do. We're also evidence-based when it comes to our hosting model. So we can confidently say that we know that we stop children from going to foster care who don't need to be there, which is huge. But you don't have to be a host to be a very pertinent volunteer either. So
yeah. That's great. And what are some of the challenges that these families are facing that cause them to like need help, to like need, like you said, maybe like a few nights at a host family? Maybe they need to have their children stay with the host family for a few nights. What's mainly driving that? What are some of the different things that could cause them to need that help?
So I would say homelessness is a huge one. And they might not, they're not living on the street homeless like some people may think, but it's that couch surfing. It's not having a permanent place to stay. And then if you've got 2, 3, 4 kids in tow with you, it's a little harder to find a friend who's willing to give you a couch. But I also think, not to get on a soapbox, but like it's our system. Our system is backwards. It's like a parent needs a job in order to afford daycare, but they need daycare so they can apply for jobs and get a job. And it's like everything depends on another step, but none of the things happen in the right order. And so a lot of times it's just that struggle meeting the need. Like a parent might be going through the process to get childcare vouchers, but she doesn't have them yet, but her job starts on Thursday. So then she needs someone to step in and help with the kids until she can get the childcare vouchers. If she could afford daycare without the vouchers, our kids would already be in daycare. Right. So it's just those pieces. It's really just kind of helping that immediate need. And then with our shelter system in the city, it's full all the time. And so sometimes it might be hosting the kids so the parent can couch surf. It's easier to just be one person and need a place to go until they could get like a family space in a shelter and or qualify for their own housing. Just depends on what their timeline is.
Some people take for granted, it's like if you have a great family support system, it's really easy maybe sometimes to have that couch or somebody to give them a ride. But when you don't have that, it can be a real challenge, right?
Right. And a lot of the families that come to us, if they have family, their family is also working very hard. The families that come to us are some of the hardest working people I know. I've never seen people scrap like this to get things done and to accomplish things for their families. And so it's a lot of young moms too. So their moms are also young. So everybody's still in the workforce. I was fortunate that my parents were retired, right? So it was like, hey, kids are sick. Like, can you come sit with them so I can go to work? That's a big one, right? They don't have anybody to watch a sick kid. And now what's going to happen when they lose their job? And so, yeah, I think it's just helping build that up because it's not everybody has that. And not everybody has someone who can take in a lot of people. So,
yeah, because it's like ultimately it's like, okay, the children are sick. Now let's say the mother misses work. And now she's at risk of losing her job. That's kind of keeping them going, right? It's just like a small thing, but it can cause a major chain reaction in their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ultimately, it's like you said, to help keep them out of DCS, right? Like keep that family together where they don't need that government interaction.
Right.
That's great. Yeah. And so, and I think it's great how you talk about how they're such hardworking people. It's not like, they're like sitting around doing nothing. Like they are trying to do better for themselves.
They are. Yeah. They're just trying to make all the pieces work. And it's hard. We don't, the world doesn't make it easy on them. It's complicated because everything is backwards and out of order. And you have to have this to get that. But if you don't have that, you can't get this. And so it's just really a lot of what we do is emotionally cheering them on because they're not used to having people cheering them on. And they're used to being told no all the time. So if we can step in any capacity, even if we can't meet what they're asking for, but we can offer something else, it's just being able to give them a yes, being able to give them a win. So that way it can help motivate them to keep going forward.
Yeah, because something's better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
That's great. And yeah, I think everybody's facing challenges from time to time. It's like to be able to just help somebody else, I think can be a nice thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all one major catastrophe away, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really, we are.
Yeah.
Some big medical emergency, some natural disaster, like whatever it is, we're all one big emergency away. Yeah. And so, yeah, being able to just step in and be that for somebody is really rewarding and just heartwarming that you can provide that community for somebody.
Yeah, and it's like the saying goes, life happens, right? And it's like, like I'm pretty fortunate to have some people around me in my life, but it's like, I could only imagine if life happens and I didn't have people there to help me. I mean, it could be a real challenge.
Right. Like our founder, Dr. Anderson, he always says, could you imagine if something happened in your life and you needed help and you pulled out your phone and there was no one that you could call? Like there was not one number in there that you knew you could call. That's what some of these families are facing. And that's unimaginable, because I feel like I could call friends from 20 years ago that I've maybe only talked to a handful of times that would probably step in and help. And so just knowing the desperation, when you've hit a point where you would rather ask people that you don't know to help you is huge. And so we really try to meet them with respect and understanding that we know it took a lot to get to this point to ask for help, and they should be commended for asking for help.
Yeah, and that brings up a question of mine is, so how do the families get linked up with Safe Families in the first place?
Yeah. So 211, we're listed on the 211 system. So if anybody calls 211 and asks for family services of any kind, Safe Families is one of the referrals that they'll get. Sure. So that's huge. Area social workers, like hospital social workers, are another huge referral source. We get a lot of pregnant moms who also have toddlers at home, and they don't have someone to care for their current children while they have their new baby. And so the hospital social workers know to call us. It could also be for other medical reasons that they know to call. And then schools, the counselors or the social workers at schools are also another huge referral source. And honestly, word of mouth, just networking with other community resources. And they might also know someone who used us before. And so a lot of self-referral is what we get as well.
Sounds like an awesome network.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, you brought up, like there's other organizations on the 211. I mean, there's other organizations that help families and children, but what makes Safe Families different than other organizations?
Yep. I think the big thing is that we're a double voluntary model. So the families coming to us are not required to use us. Nobody has said, hey, you use Safe Families, you get this get out of jail free card, right? So they are voluntarily coming to us, and our volunteers, like we talked about, are just that. They're not getting paid for their services. And so anyone can end the relationship. It's like an at-will relationship, right? So if it's not going well, the volunteer can say, I'm not sure that this is the best fit. Or the parent can say, I'm not sure this is the best fit. And so that makes us unique. There are also some other organizations in the area that do similar work. We are unique in that we are based on a church model, but we're also a public nonprofit. And so we don't have a religious requirement on the people that we serve or on our volunteers. We have core values that we want our volunteers to connect with, and our volunteers are fully background checked and vetted, but there's not that religious requirement like some of the other organizations may have.
That makes it a lot easier for people to be involved.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that it's volunteer and volunteers. It's like, yeah, this isn't going well for me. I think I'll do something else, right? Like use that opportunity open for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And we want the parents and the children to feel secure too. So if we're in a hosting and mom just is not feeling like she has a great relationship with the volunteer, we'll try to work on that first. But if it's just not working, then we would look at getting another volunteer. So we want it to be safe and comfortable for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any notable success stories with a family or families that you could share with us?
Yeah. I think what is so fun about what we do is that the success stories might not look like what you think a success story is going to be, right? Like it may not be that they got their housing or they got this or they got that. It could be they didn't lose something. And so a lot of times when we're stepping in, it's to prevent a family from going backwards. So when we can work with a family and they are able to maintain their housing because we hosted their kids for a short period of time so they could work overtime, they could get, some money saved up so they could get their rent caught up, they could get their utilities caught up. That's a huge success in our world. If we can host for a mom who's having a new baby, so DCS doesn't get involved because she doesn't have somewhere for her toddler to go, that's a huge success. We have a mom right now that we're working with who I've never met anyone like her. She digs deep. she is the most positive person I know, and she has every reason to throw in the towel. It's like every time she takes, 2 steps forward, something's knocking her back, and she just keeps going, and she doesn't ask for anything. She just figures it out. And to me, that's huge because she knows that she has people that are in her corner. We're not even currently hosting her kids, but we're still wrapping around her in that family friend capacity. And just her being able to call someone and vent things out and talk through things and kind of, get it all out there and then readjust and get back in the game is just amazing. And when we met her, she was pregnant, 2 boys with her in a shelter. And she now has 3 boys and is working and is renting a room in an apartment. So it's not where she wants to be, but it's not where she was. So, yeah.
And right now, it's got to be harder than ever. Affordable housing is just so hard to come by after, home values have gone up, in some cases 40% or more. Rents are going up. Just finding a place to stay can be a real challenge for people. So I can understand what you mean. It's like to not lose what you have, that could be a huge win for some people.
Yeah. And not losing daycare. Those are some other instances where maybe mom lost her transportation and now she can't get kiddo to daycare. Well, with daycare vouchers, your child has to be at daycare a minimum number of hours a week.
Okay.
And so if mom's not getting child there, she's at risk of losing her child care. Well, then what happens when she loses her child care? She's going to lose her job. Then what happens when she loses her job? She's going to lose her apartment, right? So it's the cycle. So if we can step in and we can make sure that kiddo is getting to daycare until mom straightens out that transportation piece, that's ginormous, right? Because then also child never has to be hosted. They get to go home with mom every night, but this volunteer is, helping fill in the gaps during the day.
That's great. Yeah. And I think even with childcare, I hear all the time from people that it's so hard to even get into childcare. There's a lot of waits just to have childcare.
I'm so thankful that my kids are adults because the wait list, I don't even understand how families, 2-parent families who aren't struggling, I don't even understand how they do it, how you get in, because everywhere has a wait list. And then if you have multiple children, there might be an opening for this age child, but not for the other age child. And so now you're going to have your kids at 2 or 3 different locations. It's not easy.
And it's not cheap either.
No.
Super expensive.
Yeah. And even with our families that get the vouchers, they don't all get free daycare. Sometimes there's a stipend that they have to pay. So maybe they get the majority paid, but they still owe, $40 a week. That's still a lot of money a month, So it's yes, it's great that they're getting that assistance, but it's not always as easy as everybody thinks it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What are some common misconceptions people may have about their ability to be able to help at Safe Families?
Yeah, that's a good one. Because when I got started, I didn't think I would be qualified. I think people are worried that their house isn't big enough, that they, don't have, someone said to me once, I don't have a dresser for this child. I'm like, he does not need a dresser. He is not moving in long-term, right? So I think a lot of is that personal pressure that we put on ourselves. My house isn't big enough. I'm not sure how I would do that. I'm not sure I'm the best person to do that. I'm not sure I'm equipped. We do train our volunteers, but really the biggest thing is if your heart is open, you're capable of doing this. If you don't have to have anything fancy. I was pretty certain we wouldn't get approved back in the day. It was a single parent household. I live in a 1,000 square foot home. There is no extra room, and I have more pets than people that reside with me. And so I was like, there is no way they're going to approve us. And surprise, they approved us. And so I just think you're just welcoming a kiddo into your space. It's not that difficult. They're not expecting bells and whistles in Disneyland. They're expecting a safe place, some food in their belly, and a pillow to lay their head on at night. And that's really as simple as it is. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
That's great. Yeah. I know a lot of people, we go to their houses don't ignore the mess. And I walk in, I'm like, It's not even that bad. We go into hoarders' houses sometimes. Like, you're good. Don't worry about it. It's like, it's maybe not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are, at your organization, you see a lot of people dealing with different challenges. We're coming up on the winter time right now. What are some trends or challenges that you're seeing right now for people that need help?
We are kind of bracing ourselves heading into the winter months this year in Indianapolis. In the past several years, there's been a winter contingency plan with the shelters. And so families could show up at a shelter. They may not get a room, but they always had a place to come in and stay warm at night with their kids. That winter contingency plan does not apply to families this year. Single women have a place to go, single men have a place to go, but families do not, which we believe is going to drastically change the number of intake calls that we get, because we can no longer recommend that a family goes to the shelter because we know that there's no space. So that's going to be a big piece for us.
What do you know what's caused that to happen, or like why these shelters have decided that?
So all of the shelters in Indianapolis are private. We don't have a city shelter. So like Wheeler, Salvation Army, they're faith-based, they're independent shelters. And I think they have been doing the best that they can. And they have been telling the city, we can't keep doing this. Like, there's not enough space. And unfortunately, we just hit that wall where there's just not space.
Yep.
They're just at maximum capacity, and they don't have, because they're at maximum capacity, they don't have the overflow space to bring in like they have in years past. So it just looks different this year, which is really scary and really sad. And we don't want parents sleeping in their cars with their kids, and we don't want parents staying in unsafe places with their kids. And that's what that's going to lead to. It's going to lead to choices that they don't necessarily want to make, but they don't feel like they have any other choice.
Right.
So,
and Safe Families is there. So it's like, hey, if you know somebody in that situation, they can reach out and maybe, get some help.
Right. And we care about the parents just as much as we care about the kids. And so even though we don't want to separate them, if we can take the kids and then that means that mom and dad can get into a shelter, then that's great, right? Then we don't want anyone sleeping in a car. Like, it's not, we always tell our mamas and our dads, like, we don't want you sleeping in the car either. Like, how can we work together so everybody has a safe place to be at night?
Yeah.
So
super, super important.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody wants to be stuck in a car or homeless. And, especially if you have kids, it's like,
right.
It's got to be
and then you have to get them to school, but they just rolled out of the car. Like, there's no way.
Yeah. How do they brush their teeth?
Right.
Where's that meal coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Just the simple things that I think some of us can take for granted on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So sort of another trend is that there's now Safe Park Indy in Indianapolis. And actually, it's one of our host moms who started it here.
Okay.
And so Safe Park Indy is amazing because they have private parking lots in the city that they open. You have to apply to park there, but it's for homeless in this area. And they can apply, and then they can qualify for a spot in this parking lot. Those parking spots also come with restrooms, places to charge their phones, snacks, hygiene items, things like that. So even though they're still in their car, they've got these other, items that are helping them. But obviously, kids can't be part of that. So there will be some collaboration there as well when they get someone who qualifies for a spot, that then Safe Park will refer them to us to host the children while the parent can stay safely in that parking lot. So
yeah, it sounds like a great option for somebody in a challenge. It's like, okay. Because I think that maybe there's people who may be fearful to go to a shelter. There's a lot of people there. They don't feel comfortable, and maybe, gives them that opportunity to have their space, right?
Yeah. And it's much better than them parking in some alley somewhere where they don't really know where they are or who might come upon them while they're trying to sleep in their car. So it kind of evens it all out. Now, of course, Safe Park Indy also has a waiting list of like 200 or 300 people. So
Wow.
Yeah. So the need is huge here. And I don't think people really understand just how great it is. And I also think that sometimes people mistakenly think that someone who is homeless is not working hard. And it's the people that we encounter, it's completely the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can be a real challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some other challenges that Safe Families faces?
So I think being a volunteer-based organization is amazing.
Yeah.
But it also means we always have a waiting list because they're volunteers. We're not just showing up with kids on their doorstep like, surprise, you get to take these kids. And so they get to say, what works for them when they're available, and it doesn't always match the needs of what we're looking for. So that I think is just always going to be a challenge. We're never going to have the right number, right? Because things are always changing. But I think that is one of the biggest struggles is like finding the right match. Or we might have a volunteer who's available, but the child has a daycare on the opposite side of town. So like it logistically doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So those are pieces that we're always trying to navigate. Just we try to have volunteers closer in proximity to the family that they're serving, because our hope is that this becomes a lifelong relationship, right? Yeah. Well, that's hard to do if it takes an hour to get, each way or whatever. So that is always going to be a challenge, just always needing to increase the number of volunteers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially it sounds like there's a lot of need from what you've described. And so, and I think that's what's kind of cool about Safe Families too, is it's not like, you signed up, now you have to do it this way, right? It's like, right. Hey, does this fit well for you? Does it fit well for them? Is everybody pushing the green button together and on the same team here?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we want it to be very collaborative, right? It's not, we don't look at it as our volunteers are doing a favor for families. They're walking alongside. So it has to be a team effort. There needs to be some sort of a bond there. And sometimes it doesn't happen. And so sometimes we do change volunteers because it's just not working. Yeah. Personalities may be clashing. Maybe it brought up some past trauma for a volunteer that they weren't aware that they really had. Yeah. And so then we pivot, right? So we always try to look at, if our motto is children safe and families together, like, is the child safe? Is everybody safe, right? Is it a good situation for everybody? The child, the volunteer, and the parent. And so that's really what we strive to do.
And ultimately, I think it's a long-term model too, right? It's not just like, they need a place to stay for a night or two. But a lot of times I think it's like you described, maybe people just need that, like, somebody to call and say, hey, like, I'm dealing with this challenge. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. Like, you can get through this, right? Just giving some encouragement more long-term. I'd come to event you put on this past weekend, and I remember hearing Steve talking about, it's like he had a young man that he stayed in a connection with for a long time, and that's like the most rewarding part of him volunteering in the organization, is that long-term connection, that he didn't just help him for like 1 day or 2 days, that he was able to help him for like a long period of time. So is that something that's like very rewarding for people that volunteer?
Yeah. And I think that's our ultimate goal, right? Is just that we're building these relationships and you're giving these kids that are part of these families, they're learning that there are people that they can trust. There are people that are reliable, like that they do show up when they say they're going to show up. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, right? So my kids and I have hosted 40, 45 kids over the past 12 years. Truthfully, I'm probably in touch with 5 of those families, but that's okay too, because we also recognize parents are coming to us in some of the hardest points of their lives. And sometimes they don't want to be reminded about that time that they had to ask people they didn't know for help, right? Yeah. And so they don't want to maintain that. And I respect that. I think our volunteers respect that too. But for those who do want to maintain the relationship, it's awesome. One of the first little boys we hosted, we had for 4 months. He was 4 years old. We had him for 4 months. He just turned 16 this summer. And like, it's just so wild to get pictures from his mom. And we live in the same city, right? But we don't get to see each other that often, but the relationship is still there. And, they all follow each other on whatever social things they're on. But it's just fun to see like these little people become these teenagers and adults, and to see their parents thriving. That case was also one of the hardest moms that I ever walked alongside. And I would genuinely call her one of my friends now. We've been through a lot together, and it's just really cool when you can end up there. So.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, if you ask a lot of people, you say, hey, would you like to be more involved with your community? Would you like to help other people? I think most people would be like, yeah.
I hope, yeah.
And then it's like, well, how do you do that? And I think then sometimes people are like, well, I'm not exactly sure, and I think this would be a great way for people who want to do that to get involved with their community.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't have to be hard. Like, is it uncomfortable sometimes? Yeah. Are you going to maybe encounter some hard things? Yeah. Like, that's just reality, right? But you probably are too. If your child has a friend come spend the night, there's probably going to be a hard thing there too. And you deal with other parents all the time. So it's just dealing with another parent. And I think just it's very eye-opening as to like what we take for granted that other families would absolutely, that's just like their ultimate goal, right? To have this support system, to have somebody that picks up the phone when they call. I have a mom that I coached her 6 years ago. I was her family coach. She calls me all the time. I do nothing for her, but she said to me, but you always pick up. And that's as simple as it really needs to be. Doesn't have to be more complicated than that, but also like how fun that, especially for families with kids, like then your kids meet other kids and you get to do these fun things together and kind of see life through different lenses. And yeah, it's just very rewarding.
Yeah, sounds like it. And what is the common age for children that you're helping?
Yeah, most of the kids are under the age of 5. And that's primarily because if they're not in school, right, and mom doesn't have daycare, those are the children that they need the assistance with so they can go get a job and they can go do those things. We do get requests for older kids, 8, 9, 10. We also have some teenagers who call that want to self-place. So we might have like a self-placing 18-year-old. So that could be maybe a senior in high school, mom's getting job transferred and she's moving, but teenager wants to finish out where they are. So it could be something like that. It could also be that maybe there's a failed family relationship there and they need a safe space to go. So we can do all ages, but the most of the kids that come to us are 5 and under.
Yeah, and that's a great time to be able to help somebody, right? Somebody in need, they're really struggling and they've got young children and you can be there to help them and their young children get through that tough time.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. That's really good. So how, somebody's interested in getting involved, how is it that somebody can get involved with Safe Families?
Yeah. So it's so easy. So we have an application that's online, which is, as you know, is really fast. I mean, It takes like 5 minutes or less.
Super simple. I've done it myself.
Yeah.
Very, very easy.
Yeah. I'm really glad because it used to be super not simple. And I think we lost some people in the process because it was a little too intense. And so we've shifted the way we do it. So the application process is easy. It's on our website, which I happen to know, indianapolis.safe-families.org. And you can apply at sfcms.net/apply. The application is easy. You have to put in 3 references, and then you answer a couple super short questions. And then the real questions come later, right? Like we have an assessment piece that we do where we just sit down and we want to know why you want to get involved, right? Like, yes, we do the background check, we do the fingerprinting, we make sure that people are safe, but we also want to know that their intentions are right. And so we do this process. It's easy. We're not scary. We just have a conversation about it. Yeah. And you can apply at any level. And so depending on what level you apply at depends on what that assessment looks at. If you're going to be a host family, we have to come to your home and do a safety walkthrough. But all the other roles, we can just meet for coffee and have a conversation.
Sounds super easy.
It's super easy. Yeah. And then you say when you're ready. Our volunteers can also say like, we would prefer girls, 10 and under, because they're basing it on what they have in their home, right? And so we let people be picky because we want it to work seamlessly. And the more you volunteer, you kind of figure out where your niche is. Like you might think this is the age that you want, and then you start doing it and you're like, yeah, no, actually I'm more interested in like the older kids. And so we shift. We meet you where you are. You get to say what your availability looks like.
Yeah, it makes it super simple for somebody to want to get involved.
Yes.
And maybe even learn a little bit about themselves.
Yes. Yeah. And it's kind of fun when you do it for a while to kind of track where you're at. When we started, we always took school-age kids because I was working downtown. So I would take all the kids that went to IPS schools because I could take them to school on my way to work, pick them up on my way home. Then when I started working from home, I went for toddlers without daycare because it was great because they napped and it just like worked with my schedule. And now I've kind of, because my responsibilities with Safe Families have grown, I'm more of that family friend now. So you need a ride to daycare, the doctor, whatever, like I'm your girl. I can do those one and done kind of things. So that's the beauty of it, though. You just do what fits with your season of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So when it comes to what does Safe Families need help with the most? Do they need more volunteers? Which you kind of mentioned volunteers is pivotal in what you do. Is it donations? Like, what do you need the most help with? And how can, what do those options look like in ways of helping Safe Families?
Yeah. Can I pick both?
Yeah. All of the above.
Great.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, we're just always going to need volunteers, right? And if someone is not sure, like we also get it. Like maybe you want to talk to somebody before you fill out an application. They can find us on social media. They can send an email to us. And we can send back info and walk them through that process. Like we know some people need a little more time and processing with it, but we just always need volunteers. And so even if somebody listening is like, this is not for me, but I think my sister would love to do this, like sharing that information would be huge. And then when it comes to donations, that's always going to be something we need. So Safe Families is a national organization, but each chapter is responsible for itself. So whatever I raise for Central Indiana stays in Central Indiana. And then I have a certain budget here that I have to meet each year. And we do not receive any state funding. And honestly, our chapter is very fortunate that the majority of our funding comes through individual donors. So we've got a lot of really great supporters out there. We do have some church support as well. And then we get some money from local foundations and grants. But the finance piece is always something that we're working on because we also want to like have a diversified stream. So while someone giving me $100,000 would be amazing, it's actually not what I look for. I look for the smaller increments from more people. That way, if someone who is a donor hits a time in their life where they have to stop funding, it doesn't halt my chapter because now all of a sudden that 100,000 is gone, right? So I want people to understand that like we truly mean it when we say any dollar amount helps. I don't care if you're giving $5 or $5,000. It all goes to the bigger picture of keeping us up and running. So.
And then you're also a 501c3, so it would also be a tax write-off for people.
Correct. Yes. Yep. And they get a tax letter every time they make a donation. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So volunteer and donate.
Yes. Those are the two big ones.
That's great.
Yeah.
What would be your message to the audience?
You can do this. This is not hard. It's not easy either, right? Yeah. But it's not hard. And I just think that there are a lot of people in this world who want to do good, but they don't always know where to go to do good.
Yeah.
And I promise we can find a place for you to do good with us, whether you want to take kids into your home or you want to support us financially, or like we didn't talk about resource friends earlier, but we also have another category of people who are maybe the people that are like, I'm not really sure I want to like hang out with kids or be a mentor, but like I can throw some diapers at you. I can drop off some gas cards, providing those tangible needs. Those all help us go round, right? Like we need every little bit of it. So yeah, I just would encourage people to just believe that they can do it because they can.
Yeah, we're always looking for ways to kind of get involved with the local community. And sure enough, sitting off camera here is Trish. And, we did some work with them at her family at their home. And I'm always looking for a way to get involved. And it was like, hey, here's this great organization. You can get involved. And so, we're fortunate to kind of hear it through word of mouth. And it's been really simple for me to get involved and meet everybody. Everybody's been super friendly. It's been amazing. So I just want to echo what you said. Like, you can do this. This is not that hard. And it is, it's like, it's always, I think sometimes it's like, I don't always just want to like donate to some huge national organization. I want to like find something a little closer to home, something I can be involved with. And I think you have a great opportunity for people to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's local impact is huge. And I run a very tight budget. So I'm also always willing to talk to people about where I spend that money, because it's not on much. I gifted Trish with a book of stamps this morning, made her day, because I'm always like, can't spend money. But I just want to be like very aware, right, of what we're doing and being good stewards of our time and our money. That's a huge thing for me and my staff that we talk about a lot, is just making sure that we're being good stewards of time and money. So
yeah, that's great. Yeah. And just doing it locally, I think, is huge. I think we all see it. If you drive around the city at all, you see people just in your car that are having challenges. And it's a way to start helping people without necessarily just like giving $1 to the homeless guy, which I think some people are a little uncomfortable with. I do often, but I think it's a way to say, hey, I know that these are going to be good stewards of my money. They're going to make sure they're going to, take my donation, do well with it. Yeah. And it's going to affect the local area, the local community, and help them in a great way. Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy to have learned. And thank you, Trish. So, is there anything else you'd like to promote today?
No.
Yeah, perfect.
No, I think we've kind of covered it.
Yeah. A lot of these. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. That's perfect. So I want to finish with something fun here. What is it that makes volunteering with Safe Families for Children fun?
And I made a joke earlier that it's us, but it is. But when I say us, I mean all the volunteers. Like, we can read so much terrible stuff in the news, right? Yeah. And then when I hang out with our volunteers and I have a chance to talk with them or have coffee with them, I leave feeling more energized than when I came in. Just such good people, and it's just fun. I mean, you came to our coffee meetup. Like,
it was amazing. Let me tell you, like, we came and, you're always like, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable. And I brought my girlfriend, who I've been like, I'm going to get involved with this organization. And she's like, okay. I was like, do you want to come? She's like, yeah, I'll come. I'll see what's going on, and then we played this game at the beginning, and then like in the first 5 minutes and into this game, like, you knew everybody there. Everybody's like friendly. It's really fun. And, within 5 minutes, we felt really comfortable and we were joking with everybody. And by the end of it, my girlfriend's like, well, yeah, I want to volunteer too, like, this is fun. I want to get involved with the community too. So
yeah, I think it's great. It just opens your world to like all these people who are just trying to really do good in their community, right? And they want to make an impact and they want to walk alongside families. And it's like, what do you not love about that? Like, it's just a lot of fun. And I also think working with the families that we work with, there is nothing like it. I'm very excited for you to have like your first opportunity in that space, because you see these people who are doing incredible things. And I mean, who doesn't love being their cheerleader and talking them through and, just helping encourage. So I just feel like it makes you feel like it's the space you were created for. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We love the opportunity. I was like, and I may be a little more picky about the way I want to help people, but it's like, I said, hey, I'm looking, we talked about this as an organization, like, we're looking for some families in need to donate some gift cards to, or some food to, for Thanksgiving coming up. And when I told you all that's something I would do, you're like, yeah, no problem. You weren't like, no, we only take donations this way. It was like, hey, I want to help out and I want to help, help with some families' Thanksgiving dinners. And you're like, yeah, absolutely. We can make this happen. Yeah. And so I appreciate that, and allowing us to help get involved and do it in the way we want to help as well. Cause I think that's, sometimes I think that's a big part of it. I've worked with other organizations in the past and they'd be like, well, we only really want you to donate this way, and then we'll decide what happens with your money. And it's like, I mean, that's fine, but I'm just trying to, we want to help. I think it gives people that option to help in the way they want. I will say the other thing about this organization I think is really amazing that makes it fun is that it is your staff. You know, I mean, I got to know Trish ahead of time, but it's like, you know, you're all so friendly, so helpful, and I appreciate that warm welcome as we, you know, get to know you and try to do what we can to help.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing. I do believe that I have the best team. I just feel very lucky. It's awesome that there are 5 of us women that complement each other. You know, we're not all the same. We work differently. We share some quirks, but we also have different ones. And it's the way that we can complement each other, the way that we can remind each other that we're really just here to do good work, you know, and to encourage each other. And then it's fun that I like them too. And we like to hang out with each other outside of work. So yeah, it's a pretty cool space, I think.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. That's great. All right. Well, thanks for coming and meeting with me and talking about it. I hope that the people watching will be able to learn a little more about what Safe Families does, and, you know, maybe they'll be interested to donate either their time or, a monetary donation to help out. So,
yeah, I love it. Thanks for having us.
yeah, thanks.
Thanks.